Coming up on the Having It All Show, a miraculous healing with internationally acclaimed trainer, speaker, author, success expert, and philanthropist, Scott Schilling.
Welcome to Having It All, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious with MarBeth Dunn, featuring experts and pioneers in health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality, creating a happier, healthier, wealthier you. And now, here's our host, MarBeth Dunn.
Scott, I am so thrilled to have you here on our show. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's always exciting to be able to share positive messages with people.
I know, and that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
So I remember reading last year on Facebook that you had suffered a stroke, and I was shocked because you always seem so strong and healthy. What was that like?
Well, it was a freak accident, actually. I got hit in the back of the head by the back deck of my vehicle, which caused a dissection, which 8 days later threw a stroke. So it was a totally freak accident. My car attacked me.
Oh, no. But this wasn't just any stroke. This was a severe one.
Yes, it was a cerebellum stroke, and I'm so blessed to be able to make a little bit of light of it all. Cerebellum's responsible for speech, memory, vertigo, walking, fine motor skills. And as a professional speaker, if you can't remember your presentation or deliver it, that's not a good thing. So I'm phenomenally blessed.
You are, and your story is amazing. So what happened? First of all, I think the hospital misdiagnosed you.
Well, I actually was walking with 7 friends, 3 of them doctors, divine intervention, I believe so. And I was walking along one second, and I couldn't walk the next. I couldn't feel from my knees down. Couldn't get my feet to move forward and became a little disoriented. I grabbed a railing, and one of my friends looked at me and said, "What's your phone number?" And I rattled off my phone number, and I said, "Why would you be asking me that now?" And he could see the visual clues that I was in the middle of this stroke. Well, fortunately, they got me to the emergency room, spent 5 hours in the emergency room, every test known to man and woman, and they released me with a quote-unquote massive migraine, when in fact it was a fairly significant stroke. So that was the start of the adventure from that side.
But then what happened?
Well, basically what they did is I went on set the next day. I was actually out there shooting 3 TV shows. I shot 3 TV shows the next day, went to the neurologist afterwards. He said, "I think it's a trapped occipital nerve radiating these headaches, but I want an MRI." Couldn't get that till the next day, fully 48 hours after the stroke. His first words after reading the MRI were, "Get your butt to the hospital, check into ICU, you've had a stroke." And that's when I really became a China doll. You know, it was like, oh my God, I had a stroke. And yet I've been walking and doing things and not necessarily all well during that time. Trust me, I was very lethargic and I knew that something wasn't right. But the fortunate part was that I was able to do all that. 48 hours, I was in God's hands. There's no doubt about it.
Wow. So now you're in the hospital. You went to the ICU. And then what happened?
Well, the doctors were actually talking, and the medical team was talking outside my intensive care unit room, and I could hear them talking, and they said, "You know, we look at this guy. He's in there laughing, joking, talking with us. You look at his MRI, there's no way he should be able to function. We've got 2 other stroke patients on the floor whose MRIs are not nearly as severe as his, and yet they're in deep trouble. I don't get it." And I heard him, and I kind of cried out to him, "Well, I got it." And the doctor and the team came in, and they said, "What?" I said, "I got it all figured out." And they said, "Okay, what is it?" I said, "It's obvious. It's God's grace, mercy, and favor on my life." And they said, "That's as good an answer as we got," and they walked out. So it was pretty interesting. I ended up spending 6 days in intensive care. We had the angiograms and all the different things to figure it all out. But I truly believe I've been touched by the divine to live through all this, come through basically untouched, and to serve other people.
Now, I truly believe that life is about service to others. And I seem to recall that there was another element to this story where you had reached rock bottom. What happened?
Well, yeah, I was actually, after they released me from the emergency room, I came back to my hotel room and my hair hurt. Everything hurt. I was at about the worst place I've ever been in. And I just cried out, God, help. And I heard, drop to your knees. And so I slid out of bed and I had my elbows up on the bed and I just said, Lord, I've been teaching that your plan and timing is perfect for the last couple of years now. I do not pretend to understand this plan or this timing. I do not believe your plan is to call me home, and I do not believe your plan is to maim me or disable me. So I'm choosing to believe that your plan is to wake me up. Duly noted, you got my attention. And that I'm supposed to use this event to serve and save myself and others physically and spiritually for the rest of my life. And if that, in fact, is your will for my life, I ask for your wisdom and guidance going forward so I execute that appropriately. And if that's not your will for my life, I just want you to know whatever you've got planned for me, I'm good with. I crawled back up into bed, and it was like I was floating on a cloud. The pain was gone. I was at total peace. And I fell right asleep, which is why the next day I got up and shot the TV shows and everything else happened. I truly believe that guidance, that wisdom, and that purpose was instilled at that moment.
So how has this changed your life, Scott?
How hasn't it changed my life? There's so many different stories to tell around this. One of my friends asked me about a day out of the hospital. A friend called me, and he said, now that you've faced your mortality, I bet your perspective has changed. Now, I had never been asked anything like that at that time, and so what came out was, death is easy. I would have been dead. I would have been dancing with Jesus. I would have been reunited with my mom, my dad, and my brother. For me, pretty simple, actually. Not great for my wife, Peggy. Probably even a little less for my kids. I might have even had a friend or two that missed me. That's not what really got me. It was that first day out of the hospital when Peggy said, let's do something normal. Let's just go to the grocery store. I said, okay. Took a quick shower, brushed my teeth. Didn't think too much of it. But as I was putting my left leg in my pants and I started to put my right leg in my pants, I kind of fell back on the bed and I went, holy cow. There was a very real possibility I'd never be able to dress myself again. And the realization of being 56 years old and vital to 56 years old and potentially a burden on my family the rest of my life was overwhelming. And it really started the appreciation for everything going forward. There is no bad day. There is no bad thing. There is no, stuff is just stuff. But it's the peace that we have in that stuff that's so amazing. A friend of mine he just has gone through a really bad year. And I said, one of the reasons that there are tests is because there are testimonies. And God gives us discernment, but the only way we know we have it is if, in fact, we get put into situations we don't like to use it. And that's what, for me, this has been a phenomenal blessing. As one of my friends said, this is God just taking control and saying, I got this. Slow down a little bit, buddy. I got plans for you. Just chill out and let my plans play out.
But this was not a mild stroke that you had. This was a severe one. And here, just a few days later, you were able to dress yourself and function normally.
Nobody understands it. If you look at that, for a while, I almost had to carry the pictures of my MRI around to prove, and I made jokes about it for a little bit. My friends have already said I'm brain dead. Look at this spot. You can see it. And, but that's, it was funny. I almost had to defend because I came away with such a blessing and no particular. I've got 4 fingertips that from time to time I have 90% feeling instead of 100% feeling. And I'm convinced that God has left that there just to let me know and to remind me from time to time when I'm starting to get back into my world or my being as opposed to his world and his being.
Now, how has this affected other parts of your life, like perhaps your business?
Well, again, as a professional speaker, the one thing you love to do is speak. And it actually created, so I was speaking 30 days out of the hospital, and I was doing actually a business training. And somewhere along the way, I said, well, you just got to persevere. Like 30 days ago, I had a stroke. You just got to fight through. And I didn't think too much of it, and I didn't say it for any particular reason other than to make the point that business happens, right? Well, a woman comes up to afterwards and said, are you telling me you had a cerebellum stroke 30 days ago? I said, yes. She said, people don't come out like you. And I said, if you say so, this is the only experience I know. Why do you say that? She said, I'm with the American Heart and Stroke Association. And I said, well, good, then use me. Use this story to save other people. And so I created a relationship with the American Heart and Stroke Association. I connected them with one of my clients. I've gotten the opportunity to tell the story, but it's not about me. It's about what happens after this and what happens in the opportunities to serve other people from your issues, So it's been a very interesting year. In fact, I'm writing a book about it all. And part of it is I went and I got myself so busy that all of a sudden one day I asked myself the question as I got off a red eye on a Monday morning at 5:30, what are you trying to prove? And I didn't expect to answer myself. But the answer was, I'm still alive. Holy cow, so you're doing this to prove you're still alive? So one of the titles I'm considering is Stop Killing Yourself to Prove You're Alive. It's just crazy what we do. We have to, ego keeps on playing into it, and we keep on trying to prove how vital we are and how important we are and things like that. And it's not about ego for me. It never has been. So it was a strange position to be in. That being said, what I've been able to do is get really at peace with the lessons that come out of adversity. And what we learn from this is as important as anything else. Now acting upon it has been amazing.
What do you mean acting upon it?
Well, I basically, as soon as I asked myself that question, I took myself off the road. I turned away a bunch of speaking events. I turned away a bunch of things because what I found was more important is being with my wife on a daily basis, is walking my dog every morning, is I changed my business model. I changed the way I do it. I don't have to go out on the road to do everything. I found different ways. And so it becomes a grand wake-up call if you use it for that. And it doesn't mean that you don't fall back into old patterns, but you recognize the old patterns a lot faster. And I'm a whole heck of a lot happier now. So is my wife and my dog.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I love that, Scott. I always find that the things that appear to be the worst for us turn out to be the best. Very often there's so many hidden gifts.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, there are there are gifts in it. It's actually one of the things that I teach, to look at every situation and ask yourself 5 questions. What's the lesson? What's the gift? What did I do to create it? How could I modify it next time to make it better? And how is this going to serve me the rest of my life? If you ask yourself those 5 questions, it turns any situation into a learning event. So what's the lesson out of this stroke? Well, the lesson was that I really didn't know too much about this kind of stuff, and that I probably, when I got hit in the head 8 days earlier, should have paid attention to the low-grade headache I had for 8 days. What's the gift? That I come out of it being able to communicate this message and be functionally whole. What did I do to create it? Well, I didn't go get checked out after I got hit in the head. I probably should have done that. What would I do next time? Definitely, if you've got a low-grade headache for 8 days, it's not right. Your body's telling you something. How is this going to serve me the rest of my life? Well, it's taught me some valuable lessons, but by sharing this, having the opportunity to be with you here, I can hopefully help some other people that, potentially wouldn't have been so fortunate to stop it from happening at all, And so I feel phenomenally blessed for all this. It's taught me so much.
We'll be back to our show in just a moment. Would you agree that the current state of the world is angry, chaotic, turbulent, and possibly insane? And that's not even mentioning everyone's personal issues. We all need miracles, and now is the time. I'm MarBeth Dunn, the Miracle Mama. Imagine a river of miracles flowing into your life, bringing harmonious relationships, better health, prosperity, clarity, peace of mind, and a deep sense of joy. What if you could know all your needs are being met and feel calm and peaceful even in the midst of turbulent change? Get your free guide now, 7 easy ways to harness the power of miracles, at miracles101.com. That's miracles101.com, and live your miraculous life. So how has this helped you in terms of your financial success?
Well, what's interesting is, as I have backed off the chasing the money, and I am now just living life. I am enjoying friends. I'm enjoying time with family. I'm doing all sorts of things like that. Money is flying at me, and more opportunities are coming to me that I can pick and choose with. And quite frankly, it's not either or. It's typically both and. And it's, who'd have thought that so much opportunity would come your way by relaxing a little bit and not pressing so hard. It's absolutely awesome.
You were trying to do it yourself rather than sitting back and letting God, source, the universe, take over for you and do it for you. And I always find that we need to step back and just let source lead the way.
Again, I have taught for 2.5 years now. We tend to teach what we need most. And I have taught the message that God's plan and timing is perfect. And because I truly believe that. And one of the things I teach is you can't believe that God's plan and timing is perfect and this negative situation shouldn't have happened. You can believe one or the other, but you can't believe both. Because if God's plan and timing is perfect, he put that negative situation in your life for a reason. And so what people see to be the negative of the stroke and things like that, I look as the launching point of what I'm really supposed to do and the messaging that I'm really supposed to share with others. I've created, like I say, I got a whole new book coming out about it, not because it's about me, but because of what you learn from going through something. People have said, so how did you hook this deal together with the American Heart and Stroke Association? I said, well, it's actually pretty easy. First, you start by having a stroke. And it really was. It was kind of a throwaway comment that I made just because I was saying, you've got to, life's going to throw you stuff, and basically it's just the grand premise of making lemonade out of lemons. My story, and I even said to the American Heart and Stroke Association, I said, I know you would prefer if Brad Pitt had the stroke, but what I have that he doesn't have is the ability to communicate the message for you. So
I think they're thrilled with you.
Well, but I mean, it's just, it's funny. You just have a different outlook on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I take time with friends. I don't rush around. I did overschedule for a while, but again, then
that was a habit.
But I learned the lesson from that.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you got to be, oh, aren't you? And you went, what the hell are you doing? This is stupid. Right. But I see it's a story. It kind of reminds me of one of my mentors. And we were sitting in his backyard at 3:30 one morning after a little too much red wine. And he was telling me about all the problems with his kids and the alcoholism in his family and the this and the that, and just how much money he had spent on all these problems and how this marriage was about to die, and it wasn't his first marriage by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, I'm aspiring to be you. Why? And he raised his glass and he went, touche, grasshopper. And it was like, but when we're in this industry and we get to be around so many cool people, so few of the cool people are really, number one, all that cool, or number two, all that happy.
I know.
It's
marketing.
Freaking miserable.
A lot of slick marketing. People think that they're happy and they're not.
I was telling Peggy last night, I said a good friend of ours, speaker, is going through a divorce. And he goes, what? I thought they were just tremendously happily married. I said, there's alcoholism in the wife. She's been to rehab 3 times, all this stuff that nobody knows. Right. And she goes, why would he share it with you? I said, because I'm the one who's always been there for him. And he's finally had enough. And Peggy went, I thought they were the happiest couple in the world. And I said, they're actually probably one of the unhappiest couples in the world.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
And Peggy said, gosh, we're so blessed. And I said, we are. We enjoy being together. It's really funny. We enjoy not doing a damn thing.
I know. I understand that.
The really simple. So again, that's what you learn out of all this is what's really important. It's not all the stuff. I've done 2,000 events. I've spoke to 1 million people. Nobody knows who the hell I am. Now, it's almost hard to do what I've done and not be known unless you're not supposed to be.
Right.
Unless the message is supposed to be.
Right.
So therefore, let go, let God, trust it. If I'm supposed to be known, I'll be known. If I'm not supposed to be known, I won't be known, or I'll become known whenever the time is right.
And we're stewards of everything here. We can't take anything with us.
Right.
All we can do is take care of it and treat it as good managers, really.
Yeah, no, and like I say, I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons this year,
What a wonderful, powerful gift you got in that stroke.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too.
Awesome. Oh, it's such a powerful story. Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing that. Now, to learn more about Scott Schilling, you can visit his show page. You can connect with him on social media. And Scott, did you have something that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I'd like to share a free gift. One of my books, Talking with Giants, it's interviews I've done with some amazingly powerful leaders, But the second side of that gift is a 12-minute audio called Words of Encouragement. And it's basically 12 minutes of people saying wonderful things to you in your ear. And if you really need those words of encouragement, it's just a great thing to play from time to time.
That's wonderful. And you'll have all the information for Scott's free gifts on the show page. So visit his show page on TheHavingItAllShow.com. Thanks so much, Scott. It's really been wonderful having you.
Thanks for the opportunity, MarBeth. And thank you to everybody. Please take care of yourself and do good for others.
Join MarBeth next week on The Having It All Show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious. Visit TheHavingItAllShow.com now to learn more about MarBeth and her special guests and download your free report.